hello, and welcome back to another episode of Diaries of a Six-Figure Coach. This is the last episode before the holidays. For some of us, it's Christmas. For others, it's Hanukkah. For some, it's whatever it is, the holidays. It doesn't really matter, but I'm super excited because I am here with a beautiful soul Reiki master, human design genius, energetic coach, and also brilliant friend and client of mine. She's one of my strategic mastermind ladies, Amelia. And Amelia is just like, honestly, such a joy to be around. And I was so excited to have her on this podcast to dive into just showing up as you are and expressing yourself fully, which is a lot of what she does. And I can't wait for us to dive into it. But also because she is such a light. And if you're not already following her, I highly recommend to check out her Instagram at Healing by Design. Healing by Designs. Actually, there's an S behind it. And obviously that'll be in the show notes as well. But I'm just super excited that you're here. And I'm so happy that we're in each other's world. And I can't wait for this conversation. So welcome.
Oh my God, what an introduction. Thank you. It's so wonderful to be here. I'm so excited to be on this podcast with you because I think you're just incredible, and to be in the same spaces as you as much as possible is just a delight.
Oh my God, I love that. You know, I think one of the cool things about the online space and about having a podcast and being connected is, for me, the ability to meet people that we feel so connected with. And for me, there is no hierarchy. Like, I really don't believe in that. If you know, I know for a lot of you listening, if you've been listening to a while, and a lot of people reached out to me after I did my episode, which was fairly at the beginning, about the pedestal, and I was talking about not pedestaling people. And you know, I think that we all have such gifts to share, and I just love that we can tap into each other's genius through the online spaces, through our work, through that. But one thing that I have found, and I want you to riff on this a little bit for us here, because I feel like it's so important, is that it really requires us to express ourselves fully, to put ourselves out there, and to own who the fuck we are unapologetically.
Absolutely. I remember that episode and I loved it because I think you and I have talked about this a little bit. And in the online space, like, there are people that I look up to, and you are one of them, but it's like, exactly that. I don't see you as like bigger or more than me, but just maybe a bit further along in the journey than me. So it's like you've gone a little further down the road and you have some really valuable information that's really going to be helpful. And there's lots of coaches that are like that. But yeah, exactly that. I think it's so important not to put anyone up on a pedestal, including ourselves. And one of the ways I think it is easiest to do, not easiest, but one of the ways that we can do that, the simplest way, I think, is really knowing who we are as people and as souls, and what lights us up and what makes us feel good, and like where we're going and what we're doing, and the self-love and the self-compassion for ourselves. Because the more solid you feel in your own foundation of who you are, the more you're able to just comfortably express who you are, the less likely you're ever going to think that you're anything less than anybody else.
That is really powerful. So I feel like it's easy to say, just fully express yourself. I feel like it's like one of those things where it's like, you know, just fully express yourself, just do it, like, just show up, you know, just own it. But I know that this is something that you really have found a way to help people do by understanding ourselves better, which I love so much, because you really help people go in rather than out. And I'm a big believer to do that both in business and in life. And I always say, you're never going to find the answers you're looking for outside of you. You're never going to find a strategy outside of you. You will have to go into your business and in to be able to figure it out, to build a business. But I know that you are doing something similar but you're using a different tool. So I would love for you to riff or talk a little bit more about that and how we can even start. Like, how the heck do I start to express myself, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think, well, I mean, for me, it's human design, obviously. And then there's the energetics as well. Being a Reiki practitioner, it's like, it's not just the human design system. There's like all of that energy work as well. But it's just learning how to, and I say this with my one-to-one clients all of the time. I'm never going to have the answer for you. It's not going to be, we're going to sit down and I'm going to tell you what to do and you're going to do that. And that's going to be like, you're going to get a certain outcome. Exactly what you said is like going inside, excuse me, and figuring out what your answers are. And human design is this beautiful system that I teach people how to take this beautiful, perfect system and putting it into our real lives, which is sometimes messy, into our real humans, which has a nervous system that needs to be understood and respected, into like the reality of our lives, and having it work with us in that respect to really learn how to listen to your body when you're making decisions. We so often get told to make decisions in our head with this like logical mind, but the reality is, the best decisions that we ever make are those ones that we can't really explain to anybody. They don't necessarily make logical sense, but we just know. And you make that decision and you can't explain it to anybody. And it maybe was the best decision you ever made in your life. And that is that, it's that feeling that you're looking for. So teaching people how to like really understand their own energy so that they can then make decisions that they feel confident in. And then they feel confident that when you feel confident in the decisions that you're making, you feel confident just generally in life. You're like, nope, I know this is the right decision. Even if it looks messy, even if it looks, a little bit weird or I can't explain it, like I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing. I'm trusting myself because I know that I can trust myself. And that's the work you're talking about, is like going inward. If you give away like all of this to someone outside of you or other things outside of you, society, parents, friends, anyone else, like your boss, it's like they now have control about how your life feels. And I don't know about you, but that's not something that I'm looking for. And I think a lot of us, anyone who's listening to this podcast probably isn't either. So it's learning how to go inward and really understanding who you are and what makes you tick and what are the right decisions for you, because what's right for you might not be right for somebody else. So it's really learning and teaching people how to harness that.
Oh, this is so powerful and so beautiful. And there's so much of what you just said that we can dive into, but I feel like one key piece that so many of us forget, and you touched on that, is that we allow our external environment to dictate how we feel. We make external things the deciding factor if we're happy or not. We have other people's opinions dictate the decision that we make, instead of making the decision for us and then owning it. And you spoke about the confidence in making that decisions and that confidence piece. And I feel like that is one of the hardest things. And one of the things that I found for me, and a lot of people like ask me, how do you do what you do and how did you build your business and where did you start and all this stuff. And so often, like, I come back to this place where I'm like, that confidence that you're talking about the decision, and then the confidence to do it actually came from doing it when my legs were shaking, from doing it. And I was like, I'm like, am I actually going to do that? And the more I was leaning into that, the less I let external circumstances dictate what I was going to do and be true to me. And the bigger those decisions went and the more confident I felt about it. With recently me making a major life decision and having never felt so certain about that. And I have so you're in human design, and I'm just gonna throw some lingo in here, and then Amelia can fill you in more about what the heck all this means. But I have an open head and an open ajna and an open head center. So one of the things that I learned about my design is that I'm never going to feel 100% certain. And I really struggled with that for a very, very long time. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, well, that's great that I'm never going to feel certain. but it really didn't make me feel confident in my decisions. And it almost felt like I can't feel the feeling of certainty. And what I've learned in the last 12 months, really, but really last 7 months specifically, is that I can feel a tremendous amount of certainty in uncertainty, and I can be certain in the uncertainty of a decision. Like, this is how I got around this whole certainty thing. But now there's things that I do and decisions in my life and my business that I make that are huge, that come with substantial consequences externally, that sometimes come with big sacrifice, and I'm choosing the sacrifice and I'm choosing it. But I've never felt as much certainty in my life. But the confidence through that came by me actually allowing myself to follow that and to trust that.
Yeah. And okay, so yeah, open head. So the 2 top centers for you are open, and we have talked about this. And I sometimes use the word fake it till you make it is like kind of a strong energy, but it's not that you're just faking it. It's not that you don't get to feel certainty. It's that you don't feel certainty in the same capacity of someone who has it defined. But because you don't have definition there, it's like you don't know what you're missing. So for you, it's like more sure than less sure. So it's like, if you're kind of in the middle is like neutral, and then this is less sure is like one way and more sure is the other. You like, the further you move into more sure, it's like, okay, that is certainty for you. And I think something you said about it, kind of like it felt like it limited you. Knowing this about your human design, something so important to me is that human design is not here to limit us in any way. It's here to expand us. And it's just, the more we know about ourselves, the more we can understand ourselves, and the more we can really kind of go inwards, like we were talking about before, and really trust ourselves and have that confidence. We all do things a little bit differently. I know you have a 3 in your profile. So learning by experience is something that you get to do, but you're kind of at a point in your life where like the first couple decades are done. And so you have a lot of experience already, things that you have experienced through your life. So moving into like this next part of your life, you're taking all of those experiences with you as well. So there's kind of lots of players in here for sure. Even just being a man gen, life kind of like is a bit all over the place for us, and we do things not necessarily for our whole lives. Like we do things for a period and then they kind of end, and that can be like a book or a job or a morning routine, or even bigger things like friendships and relationships. But yeah, I think that it's just so important to know that human design is here to expand us. And anything that feels sticky about anyone's design, I really encourage you to like talk to someone like me or someone that has some experience and be like, okay, this feels sticky, because it's often just a reframe. It's like, okay, well, how about you think about it like this? And I've done that with a lot of my one-to-one clients, and they've kind of been like, oh, that like aha moment, being like, right, that makes more sense. I can plug my energy into that.
I love that. I love that. And I feel like that's such an important thing too with anything when we're going in, whether we're looking at our human design or anything else, is that let's not look at how it limits what we don't have or don't know, but let's look at how it can expand us, or let's look at what that opens up in terms of opportunity, right? Rather than being like, oh, I am this and it limits me.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that saying of I might mess this up, but it's like, if you have a child that is really good at English and not good at math, people get a math tutor, but it's like, maybe you should get an English tutor. That's what they're really good at. Like, let's expand that. Let's expand the things that they're really good at, their natural gifts, because what we're naturally good at sometimes feels like almost nothing to us, because it's so natural. But yeah, we really, I think, need to focus on like the gifts that we do have, because when you bring all of the people together, we all make this perfect mechanism that works. We all come with something that's so important. And it's never to look at like what we don't have, because it's not that we don't have things. It's like, you know, it's not to say you don't have something because you do have something else. We don't need to ever look at it that way.
I love that, Amelia. I think that's so, I think that is so cool. And personally, I was a very shitty student. I was really bad in school. Like this, like a lot of people like don't know this about me, and I often don't go this far like back. But like I repeated grade 6 because I was pretty much at the time not able to figure out how to learn English or French. I was very bad at both. I was also not particularly good at math, to be quite honest. Um, but I was good at other things. I was good at sports. I was good at like biology. I was good at German language, like reading. But anyways, I was a really, really crappy student. And I know that I struggled for a very long time around that. And I would always be like trying to focus on like getting better at the things that I wasn't good at. And it really caused me a lot of like anxiety growing up, to be quite honest. And I, for a long time in my life, didn't think that I would ever turn out to do anything successful, which is so interesting because since I've been a hotel GM, I've run a luxury boutique hotel, I scaled to 8 figures. Now I lead incredible humans in their businesses. Amelia is one of them. I've built my business to 6 figures in just about 2 years. And like, I've done some really cool things. And it was really only when I started focusing on allowing my strengths to come through and also allowing this exploration process around that,
Yeah, I mean, talking about like there's so many layers of like societal conditioning that have gone onto you as a child, being like, having to repeat a grade, not being very good at something, like not being good at English. You live in Canada where you speak English and like you live in an English speaking country where you write it like, and in a business capacity too. And you do it in a business capacity where, like you said, you scaled a luxury boutique hotel to 8 figures. So you potentially had this story in your head about how you weren't good at that for such a long time. But the reality is that's just not even true. And society has a fun way of like helping us with this like structure. So we have some like, some direction that we feel like we're going in life. And that really resonates for our human, but it can feel very limiting for our soul. And that's what we call conditioning in human design, these things that we pick up throughout our lives. And we're particularly susceptible to these in like our open or undefined centers, but in other parts of our human design as well. And this is half of the work, is just like finding those things and kind of undoing them, because sometimes it's so subconscious that we don't even notice.
Yeah, it's so true. And so I have in my human design, and I just love talking about this because you have so much wisdom in human design. And I feel like so much clicked for me when I started to understand it. And if you don't know about human design and you want to know more about human design, I would really encourage you to reach out to Amelia and head to her Instagram and connect with her at Healing by Designs. But I have an open head, an open ajna, and an open heart. And one of the things that I learned through human design and through that exploration, above and beyond having studied a lot of things around conditioning and transformational coaching, and I understand a lot of what causes conditioning because of self-study too, which was really interesting because I became kind of obsessed for a while about how our brain works and how we take in knowledge and apply knowledge and all of those things. But 2 pieces that really stuck with me that I found out through human design was one, that because of my open head and my open ajna, it's easy for me to get confused what my thought is and also what my belief is, and it's actually somebody else's. That's one. And then my open heart center was such a root of my not enoughness, because again, I picked up so much from the outside world. And so what it really helped me do was stop and give me almost an extra context to say, okay, I'm going to stop and I'm going to say, is that my belief or is that somebody else's? Is that my thought or is that somebody else's? Is that my decision or is this somebody else's? Like, and that was a really big thing, because for a very long time, I really responded to the world based on what it presented with me. And I self-identified sometimes by having strong personalities in my life, almost like feeling I have to agree with them, or thinking I feel or think that too, until I was like, no, actually, that isn't true for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like your open head, open ajna. So that's like inspiration, ideas, thoughts, opinions, all of those kinds of things. So it is, you're less, when you don't have definition in centers, it's harder to buffer the energy from the outside world. And it's not to say that you don't ever have any original thoughts of your own. That's not the case at all. Exactly that. You just have to be careful to be like, okay, is this my idea? Is this my thought? And something I love to tell people is just push everything outside of you like it's a cartoon thought bubble, and then just take back what's yours. And with any open centers or undefined centers, I always encourage people to have a little bit of time and space, like maybe at the end of the day or like after a meeting or whenever it is, just to be like anchor back into you. And that goes for kind of like all of the centers. Like when it comes to the G, are you open in the undefined in the G center? Heart
No,
center.
I only have the 3 open centers. Yeah.
So when it comes to the ego heart center, this is self-worth, and 70% of the population has this undefined. So it can sometimes feel challenging. It's also kind of motivation and willpower. So just kind of like, once we know what we don't have defined, we can do, like you said, a little bit of self-study, a little bit of exploration, being like, oh, okay, like I have a center that is related to self-worth that's undefined. Do I have any issues around self-worth? Do I have any conditioning there? Like, let me go in and have a little look. And sometimes even that, it's just the awareness. Like awareness is such a huge thing. Just knowing these things, it's like you might have been able to buffer a lot of the outside energy, but maybe you do. And just going in and having a look never hurt anybody. It's a good idea to kind of just have a little like debrief with yourself. Like, okay, these are the centers that I could take on a bit of extra conditioning. Let's have a look. And again, with the open undefined ajna, it's not everybody's meant to be getting into like debate style conversations. And if you have an open ajna, your opinions and ideas and things like that are a little bit more flowy and malleable and a bit more adaptable. And if you have it defined, you have kind of a bit more of a black and white way of seeing things. Like, doesn't mean that you're one side or the other, but you kind of are really certain in your opinions about things, even if you see the other side. And so it can be easier for you to take on that from other people. And especially because society kind of tells us that we should have an opinion about things, especially bigger issues. It's like, what's your opinion? Which side do you stand on? And so you feel this pressure to have an opinion, but you're like, ooh, I don't really know. Like, I was in this room talking to this person one day, and that sounded really like that made a lot of sense. And then the next day I was talking to someone else at a different point, and they had the completely opposite opinion. That also kind of made a lot of sense. And it can feel very confusing if you don't have that time and space to come back to just yourself and like separate yourself from that outside energy.
Yeah, that coming back to yourself piece.
Yeah, so important. Always coming back to yourself. If it's like an undefined spleen, then it's easy to take on other people's fears, and having a lot of self-care around that one is super important. The undefined solar plexus, which is the emotional center, it's easy to really kind of feel other people's emotions. Again, both of those, like, you need time and space away from whatever that was to come back to yourself. And that kind of goes for all of the centers, which is like, self-care is so important. And it's not bubble baths and wine with the girls. It's that, like, kind of like, okay, I need some space to myself. Like, what am I holding on to that's not mine? It's that self-exploration and kind of like self-study that we need to maintain through our lives.
Ugh, I love that. I feel like that's such a misunderstood piece, self-care. Like, people think of self-care really as like bubble baths and massage appointments. And don't get me wrong, I love bubble baths and massage appointments, but my kind of self-care most of the time these days is like sitting with my emotions, crying, journaling, like, reflection time, quiet time, reading a book. But yeah, it's very like different, and also holding massive compassion for myself when something didn't go right, or if I have made a decision that wasn't the best, and you know, it caused conflict, and you know, like shit goes wrong. You know, um yeah, I feel like,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes there's this perception online that our lives are so perfect, and they're really not, but the self-care piece is so big, and that's something that I've really been focusing more on, and in being intentional for me is a huge part around that.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to say self-love is the currency of abundance. And that to me is like self-love is like self-compassion, like all of those things to do with the self. But true self-love is when you love yourself even when you make mistakes, and it's not like, oh, I guess I'll love myself anyway. It's like you truly are just like, okay, like we learned something here. Like that wasn't my finest moment, but if I didn't do that or experience that, I wouldn't be at this point. Like I wouldn't have learned this lesson or whatever it is. And the reason self-love is the currency of abundance is that when you truly love yourself and you truly have that deep compassion for yourself as a human and as a soul, it raises your frequency. And then you're vibrating on a frequency that is like the love frequency, the wealth frequency. Like this is more when you're more aligned. And we want to be vibrating at a higher frequency as possible. And just as a side note, that's not necessarily high vibe, which you and I have talked about. It's, just because just because you're feeling high vibe doesn't necessarily mean you're on a high frequency, because you can be on a high frequency by taking care of yourself, which means like, maybe having an afternoon cry, maybe having, a difficult conversation that makes you feel pretty icky. Like those things you're still going to vibe at a pretty high frequency doing those things because they're honoring your energy. They're the things that you need to do. And it's really taking care of yourself and like loving yourself through this whole process that keeps you at that high frequency. And that's what we're aiming for here, is to be as in alignment as we possibly can. And that can feel messy and sticky at times because we're so conditioned to be like happy and polite and keeping the peace and like all of those kinds of things with other people, but also with ourselves, and kind of being like, I don't want to deal with it because that's going to make me feel crappy, and then I might feel crappy for like a week, and then like what's going to happen to like my life or my business or all of these things. But I have had some wonderful weeks in business when I felt pretty terrible, and like, clients were still coming in, I was still making wonderful connections, and money was still coming in because I was taking the time and space to like really honor my energy and really honor where I was at, and hold a lot of self-compassion.
Ugh, I think this is so vital. And yeah, you and I have had a lot of conversations, and also in the strategic mastermind, we've spoken about this around like high vibe doesn't mean high frequency, and being open to receive and being in this high frequency place doesn't mean you have to be jumping up and down and dancing. And I know you love to dance and I love to dance, so don't get me wrong, like I love to dance, and I think generally people feel like I'm a very high vibe person, and I am, but this is just who I am. But I'm also the kind of person who cries a lot, and I'm also the kind of person who really sits. Like I feel like my emotional range is one of the most beautiful things that I have, and so I feel all of that. But I think that what you just said there around understanding that we don't have to be high vibe to receive. How do you feel that has supported you in terms of being able to continuously grow your business? Because I know a lot of my listeners are growing their businesses. They, are always looking for tools or for ways to tap in to be able to really feel that. And we know there is a lot of pressure, I feel like, especially in the coaching industry, around being in the right energy and be high vibe to receive. And like there is a lot there, and there's a lot of people that I see beating themselves up because they're not manifesting the things that they want, and they're like, I'm trying to be all high vibe all the time, but it's just not happening. And I get it's fucking hard, but like how are you navigating these times? How has it helped you to have this deeper level of understanding around, right now I might not be high vibe, but I'm still in a high frequency? How do you decipher, like, how do you know that you're in it, you know?
Yeah, I think it takes a little practice. For me, like when I first came across human design, there's your not self and your signature. So that's kind of like when you feel out of alignment or something in your life is out of alignment is your not self. And when you feel in alignment, it is your signature. For Manjen, so for you and I, it is frustration or satisfaction. And so really understanding like when I felt that. So even if it was like, okay, I just had this really tricky conversation or like whatever's going on. And it's like, I'm kind of like, okay, I need a day where I'm like not really on and I'm not really like on social media, or maybe it's a week or whatever it is. And just knowing that it's like, you just have to do what it is that needs to be done at that time. And if that is to like dip out for a little bit, then that's okay. Understanding that, I mean, we should be diving into like our inner work anyway, but owning a business and being an entrepreneur is you're gonna have to. There's no other way around it, because especially in a personal brand, like you are your business. And so you just get faced with so much of the work that maybe you have avoided in the past because we're so conditioned to kind of like be happy and like, high vibe and avoid those things. And just knowing that it's like, okay, if like this week is a week where I spend a lot of time crying in the shower, like that's okay. Like it's that's actually how I feel. Being mindful, like not to kind of get into that woe is me kind of like stuck in those places, but like honoring that they have to happen. It's like, okay, if this is where I'm at, this is where I'm at. And this is what I'm going through. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you can't still show up for your business if you have the energy to do that. We are complex beings, and what we see a lot of the time on social media is everybody's highlight reel. Even for even myself and yourself and other coaches who do bring a pretty real look at our lives and are pretty authentic on social media, it's still not everything. Like everyone deserves privacy, and just to know that it's like everybody is going through stuff. Everybody has a lot going on in their lives, and they're not required to share it all for you to feel like you're doing it right. Like life gets to be messy, and you don't have to prove to anybody that it has to look a certain way or feel a certain way. So long as it looks good and feels good for you, even in those messy moments, knowing deep down, you're like, okay, this is serving me. Like I'm moving through something, and I'm going to come out the other side, and this is going to be wonderful. And knowing that like in that space of like moving through something challenging, it's not like your business or your life just turns off. Like, it's not like, okay, I'm having a week where I'm crying in the bottom of the shower. Like, okay, business done. Like, we're just going to switch that off and put it away. That's not how it works, because your frequency is still quite high in those moments because you're honoring where you are actually at. And when you have a high frequency, that's when you're living most in alignment. And alignment doesn't mean you feel fantastic all the time. It means you're doing the right thing for your energy. And that still allows things to come in for you. I think a lot of people think that, like you said, like manifestation, all this stuff, it's like, okay, I have to get up and I have to meditate for this long and do this many affirmate, like all of these things that we have to do to achieve it, to keep our energy at a certain point. It's really a lot less complex than that. Like Millie Fox does, set it and forget it for like moms for manifesting. And it's just like, I really love that saying of like, you don't have to be thinking about and like fixating on something that you're trying to draw into your life every minute of every day. Like put it out there, anchor into the energy of it, do the work around it that you feel called to do, and know that you're a part of this. You're co-creating with the universe. Like allow the universe and the energy outside of you to also do their job and its job to bring this to you.
Oh, this is so good. There's like so many like ways we could go right now. I'm like, we're gonna like drill into that. But what I will say is that, this is part of the reason why I decided to consider human design in the aspect of how I create strategies for people, so that what they do and how they show up feels really aligned to them. And Amelia here, yes, she's a client of mine, but she's also actually on my team in terms of that she supports my clients, my one-to-one clients, with their human design and getting them a reading and understanding how the human design works. And then the reason why is so I can take that information from Amelia and I can actually understand it. So when I create business strategies, I can make sure that alignment is there, because part of what you just said is that, you know, when times are not good and things are hard, it doesn't mean we can't show up for our businesses. It might mean we pick ourselves up from the floor or from the shower or from the bath or wherever we are, like, you know, being in our moment and expressing that emotion and saying, hey, but I'm here to serve and I'm here to guide and I'm here for this purpose that I'm having, and this is important to me and I'm going to show up. And what I find is that when it comes to business, when we're doing things that are out of alignment with our natural strengths, our values, and this really plays into also our design, like when we're doing things in ways that really don't feel good for us, we're less likely to do them. And when that is the way we're trying to build our business, we're really in a forcing way of building our business. But then when shit goes wrong in our lives and when we're dealing with bigger things, it becomes almost impossible to show up, because now you're trying to take action that already feels hard in a situation that already feels hard. And to be honest, I mean, I can mother myself through a lot of stuff, and I have taken action feeling really shitty and doing something that makes me feel really shitty. But I would say that, like, compared to a lot of people, and I'm gonna toot my own horn, I was like, just gonna say, not that I'm gonna toot my own horn, but I am going to toot my own horn and will say that I have a tremendous amount of resilience and grit, and sometimes to the point that it is putting my own well-being at risk. And I've had to learn that lesson again and again. But most people, and I've learned this over working with entrepreneurs specifically, will not do the thing at all when things are tough, especially when, like, even more so when the actions aren't aligned, but when it feels good for you to show up in your business, when it feels good for you to do something, then even when you are experiencing the times where shit's happening, you're still showing up. And this is something too that I have seen you do courageously, you know, still showing up when you went through things, but also taking up space when it felt scary because you're feeling momentum in your business. And this is the balance, right, that we all have to learn for ourselves, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. I say absolutely a lot. I've just realized as we're doing this podcast, but I mean, having you and being in strategic has been a huge game changer, because it has created this, like, these masculine logical spaces where it's like, okay, here's the structure. And that has been so tremendously helpful, because on the days, and like we've talked about, like I have also been through quite a bit this year. And so on those days or weeks where things have felt more challenging, it's like, okay, I know what I have to, as in, like, I want to show up for the minimum of what I need to for my business, because that's going to make me feel good. Not to let it just like float away is not going to make me feel good. So even though it is a bit challenging to like pull myself together and be like, okay, I'm going to show up for this because I actually want to, it's just even knowing what those things are, instead of kind of just like fluffing you away through the clouds, being like, I don't know where I'm doing or what I'm going. Like, being in this mastermind has been incredibly powerful for that. And it really has like held me and supported me in such a beautiful way. So when things are tough, it's like having that support and having those pieces in place in your business, so your business still runs and you're not having to put in a tremendous amount of effort and or just like completely dip out. And sometimes that means, you know, like having things like content that's been batched and then just, you know, jumping on and answering a couple of Instagram messages. Like, I can show up for that even if I'm having a pretty bad day, because showing up for that makes me feel good. I'm like, this is my business is such a wonderful place to be, and I love it so much that having that support has made it something that I haven't resented in times when I have felt challenged or things have been hard. It's been something that I've turned to and been like, oh, okay, this is nice. Like, this feels normal, and like, you know, something I can do that can kind of like feel like I'm having a bit of a normal day and just kind of keep myself on track. And even, you know, that's when I felt bad, but like when I feel good, it's like having all of that extra time and space to be like, okay, like having this structure that I then get to like dance on and play with has been absolutely incredible. Like honestly, being in strategic has been such a gift, to be able to move within my own energy field.
Oh, I mean, I loved it so much, and like I didn't ask her to do this. Just saying.
No, that was just completely off the cuff.
I was like, I'm like taking a moment. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing
You're
that.
so welcome.
You know, one of the things, and I'm gonna get emotional, but one of the things that I really wanted with that space was to break through this idea that structure limits us, or strategy limits us, or boxes us in, and that it can actually be something that holds you, right? It's kind of like you saying your design doesn't limit you. It's like me saying your strategy doesn't limit you, you know? And to hear that my intention of that space and what I'm sharing and how I'm guiding people is landing and giving you exactly what I hoped it did, which is feeling held and supported when it's tough, and feeling spaciousness and freedom when it all flows.
It was definitely that. I was about to say absolutely, but it was definitely that.
You can say
I
absolutely.
feel like being in this well, not this specific container, like with you just, what you offer is so unique and special. And it's like having a house as opposed to like living in a field when it comes to your business. It's like I get to like have the house, which is the structure, and I can like move around in whatever room I want to. I don't have to be like, okay, you have to do this on this day. And it didn't never felt like that, but it gave me like the safety and security to kind of know like, okay, what direction is my business going in? What am I focusing on? Like, all of those kinds of things. And about how like, you know, I always batch content because this is actually my second business, but just like how important that can be to have those kinds of things, to like have things in place that are going to support you so that you can honor your energy and you never have to feel like you're showing up in a place of force. And it's not even just for like the bad days. It's for the days where like your friend calls you and is like, hey, I'm playing hooky from work. Let's go skiing. You're like, absolutely, I'm coming. Like, that sounds so fun, to be able to just, you know, make those decisions because you have supported yourself in your business and you have that already there.
Yeah, I feel like having a plan, right? Like having excuse me, having a strategy. And I feel like human design, there's so many analogies there with human design too. It's like it gives you guiding principles. It gives you a guideline that you can come back to. You know, you don't have to follow it if you don't want to, right? Like you can always like pivot and change and refine, but ultimately there's something so beautiful when we have something that we can tap into, you know, when it's something that we can rely on, like you're saying, like knowing, okay, here's some of the things I'm going to show up for because I have the plan and that feels good, but also it brings you back to being in alignment and feeling satisfied even when the rest of the day was a complete shit show, you know? So you're going to be in the frequency. So the strategy that you follow in your design with your authorities and all the things, the strategy in your business that you actually physically have, and the plan that comes with that, all gets to work together in this beautiful synergy. And that is something that I love so much and is such a gift, and to see it lived out, you know? I mean, that must be something that I feel like for you must be such a beautiful thing too, as you're guiding your clients. But for me, it's always seeing that in action, like witnessing you doing what you do, witnessing you welcoming clients, witnessing you, you know, being like, holy shit, all those things coming in, right? Like, what? Like witnessing you through all that, but also witnessing you saying, I got to take a step back, like witnessing you honoring your energy while still showing up. Like those, I think, are such beautiful pieces, and they become more possible because we are doing the work, and the guidelines become this beautiful vessel that holds us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something Ruhu, the creator of human design, or the discoverer of human design, but it's called the human design experiment. And it's kind of the same as what you just said. It's like, here are all of the tools, and I'm going to be here to guide you and help you along the way, but go experiment, like see what happens when you do it this way. It's not for me to be like, this is how you do it, and if you don't do it that way, the whole, like, your life's just going to be a failure. Like, that's just not true. But it's just kind of like giving you these different tools to be like, go experiment, like see how this works with the energy around you, how the energy of the universe responds to you now that you're kind of doing it this way. Does that feel good for you? And I mean, almost always the answer is yes. So
good. I love this. Okay, Amelia, we've been chatting for a while. I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, oh, I'm forgetting all the times today. I'm like, oops. Time flies when you're having brilliant conversations. So I'm so excited. But I know that you've recently had an incredible masterclass, and you shared some serious gold, and that there's a way for people still get their hands on it. And I feel like a lot of people might want to know more about human design, how it works, all these things. I was on your masterclass and I loved it. I left a bazillion comments because that is what I do. So what do you have for everyone listening so they can maybe start on this human design journey with you and dive in and find out more?
Yeah, absolutely. So Thrive is the masterclass. It's on my website. It's a freebie that anyone can jump on into. It's an hour. It's just talking about how to take that human design system and applying it into your real life so that we can thrive, because when we're in survival mode, it's very difficult to be thriving. So understanding how to honor your energy, how to honor your human, and then there's some information about each of the different types and how that kind of energy works with the different types. And if you listen to the end, there is an incredible fun freebie for everybody. If you just get in contact with me, you can email me or DM me on Instagram and let me know you've watched the class, and I'll send you a link to set you up with this really, really fun freebie. But the class itself is amazing. And I say this a lot to people. It's like, if the only thing you do in human design is like come to one of my masterclasses or just learn a bit about your design and your type, it will still make such a big impact in your life. It's not, obviously you can work with me further, and I have lots of wonderful programs, but I'm not putting stuff out there to be like, oh, and now you have to like buy this to like really make an impact. Like, this freebie will make such a big impact in your life if you take the tools that we talk about in there and apply them to your life and really like integrate and embody that.
Oh my God, I love this so much. Well, I would highly recommend signing up for this masterclass. I'm going to drop the link in the show notes so it's easy for everybody to find, because it's so good. And I just like, I'm like, so like, I have like a proud moment, a proud Amelia moment. And like, I'm just like so proud of everything that you've accomplished, the way you're showing up, the way you are expressing yourself and really embodying what you are doing and what you're teaching people. And also your willingness to show up and make an impact regardless of the outcome and regardless of the action. And I just really love walking alongside leaders like that. And it's my greatest gift that I got to walk alongside in the strategic mastermind with you. And who knows, maybe continuing in 2023, you never know. We haven't spoken about that yet. So I'm like, there's like zero pressure here, neither. But like, it is one of those things where I think that it's so cool what we can co-create. And one of the things that's really so powerful for me too is that I always know that the people that are meant to be coming into my world will come into my world, and you are one of them. And I just love how we're co-creating things together, how we're working together. Like, I'm so excited that you are like, for me, my go-to person when it comes to human design. I know there's a lot of other people in my world that do human design, but I'm sorry, like, I'm Amelia is my gal. Because I love the way she approaches human design and what she does, and the way you do it. But really for me, it's also, the way you've been embodying it and what you stand for. And and the complexity that you bring with energetics in general, because you are doing so much more than human design, because you also have the Reiki piece, and like you really understand energetics. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. And I've experienced that power. And so I want everybody listening to experience that power too. So make sure you give Amelia a follow too at Healing by Designs, and damn, sign up for that masterclass. Like it was so good. So good. So good. Anyway, so Amelia, I know we're like at the end of the year, like we're at the end of 2022. It's actually just realizing that this is really cool, because it's December 22nd, 2022. So we having all the twos. This is your episode airing on this, which I think is such a beautiful thing. And I'm big into like angel numbers, and I just had this like moment where I'm like, oh my god, 22 is when this episode airs. Anyways, okay, I'm geeking out, but like, what is a wish that you have? What would be a wish that you would have for people for this holiday season and beyond?
My wish for what I do for this world, and what then it kind of like leaks out into the world. I'm here to create impact. And I think that if we create impact in women's lives and teach women to like really trust themselves and really like know what they want and like love themselves, this will change the world. Like women will change the world. Women who love themselves, who trust themselves, and who have the ability to go out and do the thing that they love to do is going to make such a big impact in the world. And I'm such a big believer in creating big impact in other women's lives. And I truly believe that's what I'm here to do. And that's the kind of driving factor whenever there's days when my business is challenging, is like coming back to like, that's my why. And it's just so important to me to create that kind of freedom for other women to create that big impact in the world. So that's not just the holiday season. That's like a really big thing, but that's what I'm here for.
I love this. I love that. That is such a beautiful wish for everybody. And it's rooted in trust, and to be able to have impact and experience freedom. I think that's so beautiful. Well, as we have going into the Christmas season, my wish for all of you, I'm going to have a wish for all of you too, is that my wish for you is that you take a chance on yourself. My wish for you is that you take a chance on yourself, or more chances, I should say, on yourself, because there probably isn't just one. And I want to encourage you through that wish to tune in and take a chance on something that you really want to do and you haven't done yet. And that can be all sorts of different things. Whether it is finally hiring an incredible mentor, understanding your human design, jumping into the strategic mastermind. Had to throw that in there. Whether it's taking a vacation you've been wanting to take, or whether it's actually going after the promotion that you want, or playing a bigger game, or taking up more space for yourself, for self-care, for crying in the bathroom floor. Like, my wish for you is really that you do something for yourself. You take a chance on yourself for you and do something that you haven't dared to do. So that is my wish for you. And I feel like that goes straight with the piece and the wish that Amelia has put out there. So Amelia, thank you so much for being here for this holiday episode, pre-holiday episode on 2222. So cool. Anyways, everyone's like, what is wrong with her? This was incredible. You're such a light. Thank you so much. So much, not just for being on this episode and sharing all the beautiful wisdom, but for being in my world. And I cannot wait for us to continue co-create incredible things together. So thank you.
Oh, Teresa, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for having me. And I too can't wait to see what else we co-create in the future.
Oh, here we go. Okay. Happy holidays, everyone. Bye.